go on the left side with Phil first.
Hey, Steve. Phil Barber, Santa Rosa Press, Democrat. There have been times when Kevin was ball dominant in this postseason and his shots didn't always go in and you lost games and everybody was talking about that Kevin's got the ball too much. And there's times like last night when, you know, he's a godsend for you guys in that regard. What's the balance you try to strike there, and, you know, when does it work and when does it not, other than shots just going in? Yeah, it's a fine line, isn't it? The bottom line is in the playoffs, the game gets much more difficult for everybody. It's just harder to get a shot off. And you can see that across the board on both teams. And as you go through the playoffs, you see different teams, different matchups. Everyone poses a different threat. And there are just a handful of guys in the NBA who can kind of get their shot whenever they want. And Kevin happens to be one, and he happens to be 6'11" with long arms. You know, it's almost unfair what he can do. But yeah, there's you know, there have been moments where, you know, everybody was talking about how our offense had ground to a halt. Well, that's because of good defense generally. It's not because we're not trying to move the ball. But I think what he's done a great job of in this series is attacking quickly. You know, he's not holding the ball for long. He's catching and making a decision and putting the defense on its heels. And he's been brilliant, obviously.
Second row again.
Trista Crick, USA Today Sports. Steve, I'm not sure if you saw the news on Brian Colangelo that he'll resign. As a former front office staff member, I'm curious as to your thoughts on how to use social media in that position, knowing that it can be great for a career and it can also really harm one, as we've seen.
Well, I won't comment on that situation in particular, but I learned pretty quickly. You know, I used to be in television and tweeted all the time, and I learned pretty quickly as a coach I'm better off just retweeting interesting articles that I see and then leaving everything else to someone else. And I've made a couple mistakes. You know, it's a dangerous game. You know, even, you know, something seemingly innocuous you tweet, and all of a sudden that comes back to haunt you. I think years ago when I was working at TNT, I tweeted something about, you know, if I could have one player on the road for a Game 7, it would be LeBron James. You think any Cavs fans might have reminded me of that tweet, you know, several years afterwards? So, yeah, I think in general, when you're in this position, it's best to avoid that stuff as best you can.
And tell your loved ones to keep burner accounts to a minimum as well.
That was your comment, not mine.
Alvaro in the back.
Alvaro Martini, ESPN. With your background as a shooter, and we've also seen you mic'd up, talk to Steph when he's not having great shooting games. When the shots don't fall or the attention's too much on him, as a shooter's whisperer that you are, how do you manage that process?
Well, as a coach, you know, you just always want to encourage your guys. Steph doesn't need a lot of encouragement. I mean, he has built a mindset for himself that has gotten him to where he is, which is he's going to shoot, and he's never going to stop. That's why he's able to make the shot like he did last night, which I thought was, you know, one of the two biggest shots of the game. His and then Kevin's that followed, those were the two biggest shots of the game. And that's a real skill and a test of will to be able to be, you know, 0 for 10 or whatever and make a huge shot. So Steph doesn't need much encouragement, but every once in a while I might offer a little bit. But he's got the right mindset, which is you just keep going, you keep shooting.
Tim in the back row.
Tim Reynolds with the Associated Press. Steve, you guys have made winning look so easy at times, and obviously it's not, but you guys have made it look that way over these 4 years. The route that you had to take this year, not being the 1 seed, you know, slumping a little bit toward the end. I mean, Steph was hurt, sure, but, you know, it wasn't this wasn't the smoothest road for you guys. In some ways, does it make you appreciate what you guys have done almost more? The fact that, you have shown a resiliency that you really weren't called upon to show much the first 3 years of this run?
Well, yeah, I mean, what I've kind of said this year quite often is that every season is very different. You know, every journey is a new one each season. And yet the cumulative effect on multiple journeys adds up, and we have felt that this year. I think it's been our most inconsistent season. It's been our most difficult season. But our guys sensed the finish line, and they turned it on right from the beginning of the playoffs defensively, and that's been what's been key, I think, to get us to this point where we're on the cusp. Our defense has been fantastic through however many playoff games we've played, and so that's why we're here. But you know, now that we are one game away, we'd like to eliminate that inconsistency and put forth our best effort, our best game tomorrow, and that's the plan.
Last two on the left, and then Connor here.
Steve Dieter, Kurtenbach, Bay Area News Group. I know there's one game left and your focus is on Game 4, but perspective-wise, this could be the last time these two teams meet in the NBA Finals, 4 straight years. How do you view this rivalry? Has it brought out the best in both teams? How much do you focus on the Cavs each and every offseason? What do you think? How do you put it in perspective?
Well, that's really a question I'd rather answer after the series is over. It's you know, it's hard to go into a retrospective when you're right in the fray still. So if you don't mind, I'll pass on that question, and when the series is over, I'd be happy to answer it.
Connor, last one.
Steve, Connor Letourneau, San Francisco Chronicle. Just as a fan of the NBA, what has it been like for you for the past 2 years, having a front row seat to see two of the best scorers in NBA history, and LeBron and KD going head-to-head on the biggest stage?
It really is shocking, and when you see the talent. And you know, I was telling our staff after the game last night, I played in 5 finals. I don't think I ever saw anybody make a 30-foot shot in the middle of the game, much less 4 of them, which KD did last night, I believe, and which Steph did multiple times the game before, which LeBron did multiple times in Game 1. The talent level right now, I think, is at an all-time high in the league. It's very different. You don't have the aircraft carriers. You don't have Shaq and Patrick Ewing and Hakeem. But the skill level on the perimeter is so shocking. And you know, sometimes I try to picture myself playing in the finals now. You know, and 20 years ago, I survived. It was tough, but I survived, and I could find guys to guard. I can only imagine right now, you know, LeBron would be pointing right at me, saying, "Come on up. You know, we're gonna set a screen with you." And it's gotten so tough. You have to have so much versatility and size and speed and strength to be able to survive on the floor, because of this incredible skill level, because these guys can make shots from 30, 35 feet without blinking. And now you got to go out there and pick them up, and now they're driving by you, and they got 4 3-point shooters in many times, or in many cases, but usually at least 2 3-point shooters, sometimes 3 or 4 surrounding them. So guarding and playing defense today is the most difficult it's ever been.
Thank you, Coach.
Corriere della Sera. How has your approach to having to face a player with one of the highest basketball IQs in history evolved during these 4 years in the finals? Do you feel a little bit more comfortable as a team and as a player?
Yeah, I mean, in the finals, it brings the best out of you, and when the competition is as great as it has been every year we've been here facing LeBron and teams that he's been with, it tests you mentally and physically to get through these series. And you know, looking back 2015, 2016, last year, and this year, there's been so many different challenges that we've faced, and some we've succeeded at, some we haven't. And definitely a better player than I was before, you know, these 4 series have started, and hopefully there'll be an appreciation for that when it's all said and done.
LeBron just said that in order to win this series and games in the finals, you need to be, besides having talent, you need to be cerebral. So what's the state of mind and the mindset you need to have now to close the series?
Just understand the details of defensively what we need to do against a team like Cleveland with the threats that they have. Understanding that Game 4 is going to be the toughest game that we've played in this series to close it out, and we're going to need energy, effort, focus from every guy that steps foot on the floor for 48 minutes, and kind of like we did in Game 3, where we know they're going to throw some crazy punches, and we got to be able to weather the storm and their runs and the crowd and the atmosphere and all that. Just try to keep our composure as best we can. Whether shots go in or they don't, or calls go your way or they don't, no matter what the score is, you got to keep fighting, keep playing, because closeout games are the hardest things that you can ever experience in the playoffs.
Tim in the back row.
Tim Reynolds with the Associated Press. Steph, you guys are grown accustomed to winning 65, 67, 73, whatever the numbers have been the last 3 years. In a couple of ways, does you almost appreciate this run more because you guys had to show maybe a lot more toughness this season, had to deal with a lot more adversity this season than you had in the past 3? Does it almost make you appreciate what you guys are about to do more given the journey that you've been on this year?
At the end of every season and run that we've had, there's always an appreciation for the things you learn and things you've gone through. Going into this season, I don't think anybody could have guessed or predicted, the ups and downs and the roller coasters we've been on. So definitely a different year, just overall. Personally with injuries, as a team with dealing with injuries, dealing with the kind of expectations that have been placed on us from the outside and the noise around us as a team. We're trying to understand that throughout the regular season we had to continue to get better, whether that was a slow process or not, and understand when the playoffs came around that probably wouldn't go 16-1. To win a championship is probably going to be a lot harder because teams are keying in on us and shifting up their lineups and things like that. And it's kind of been that's been how it's been. And I think for us to do what we did in the conference finals and win a Game 7 on the road, we'd never done that before. And now be one game away. It's been a crazy ride. So now we just got to finish the job, and I think we're all excited about that opportunity.
Back left.
Dan Feldman, NBC Sports. Steph, there's a video going around of you kind of yelling into your jersey right after you left the court last night. What was going through your mind at that point?
Obviously happy to get the win. It was a tough game all the way around. And, when you go through that kind of competitive experience for 48 minutes, it's a sense of relief walking off the floor with a win. Obviously, I always say I'm my biggest critic and would have loved to made a couple more shots earlier in the game and things like that. So sometimes you have to get rid of those thoughts and understand that there's another opportunity on Friday to rectify that. But we're walking off the floor up 3-0, having won a game on the road, and definitely a sense of relief and just getting those emotions out.
Is that a conscious decision you've made at some point, that when you need to let those emotions out, to do it after the game, before you get in here with us, like that's the right time, or is that just when it happened to come out last night?
I've never thought to walk up here on the podium and just yell. So, nah, I never had that impulse. But usually, like I said, when you're in that pressure type environment on the court and there's 20,000 fans screaming at you for 2.5 hours, when you walk off the court and you're in the tunnel, walking in the locker room, there's a little time to decompress a little bit. It might come out a bunch of different ways. But yesterday, I just wanted to yell and get it over with.
Phil on the front left.
Hey, Steph. Phil Barber, Santa Rosa Press, Democrat. 2 full years with Kevin now and a lot of success, obviously. But are there times when you still find yourself sort of feeling out who has the hot hand at a given time, or when you need to take over a little bit and when you need to sort of defer to Kevin a bit?
Not really. I mean, it's been very, very fluid, especially this year. Been well documented, last year how it went up until we were in this building, I think over the Christmas Day game. and us having kind of a come to Jesus meeting afterwards about what we needed to do differently to build some momentum down the stretch of that season to get ready for the playoffs. But this year has been a lot more comfortable, a lot more just understood how we feel out the game and what plays to call, and understand we all can be aggressive. We're not going to step on anybody's toes. We all understand that we'll have an opportunity to impact the game, whether it's for stretches of the game or play here, play there. But we all need to be aggressive and be threats and be confident out there. And it's been fun to be on that journey and kind of learn a new system within an old system pretty quickly these last 2 years.
Ramona, back left.
Steph, Ramona Shelburne, ESPN. So LeBron said last night, and then I think he just said it again just now, that since you guys have gotten Kevin, there's sort of less pressure on each of you guys individually. You can have a bad game, and Kevin can have a night like that. Do you agree with the statement that there's less pressure on you guys individually? And two, if you don't agree with it, what is that pressure that you guys feel individually?
I mean, yeah, if a game happened like last night and I shot 3 for 16 and we had guys scoring under 15 without KD having the game he had, it would have been a lot tougher to win. But pressure, I don't necessarily agree with that, because I feel like every time we step foot on the floor, we put pressure on ourselves to be great, and whether you live up to it or not, you gotta be okay with it, your effort and your intensity and whatnot, and the result of the game. But we don't win 70 or whatever, we won 67 games last year, and go through the journey that we did this year without everybody feeling a sense of pressure and sense of urgency every night that you step foot on the floor, whether you get the job done or not. We all want to show up and do our jobs at a high level, because that's what got us all to where we are, today as individual players and as a team. So KD definitely falls into that. He helps the situation, but I don't think that takes. We don't walk on the floor and just, there's KD. All right, we're good. Like we still have to play and play hard and play well.
Gary, last one in the back left.
Ross from Boston Globe. How different are the Cavaliers without Kyrie Irving?
I mean, he's an unbelievable player, and I don't know much about how much their schemes have changed. With they run a lot more sets to try to get guys and open shots, outside of LeBron creating and things like that. So it's just different, but I don't really know how to explain it. Kyrie's such a unique talent. You can just give him the ball and try to help him. He can create a shot for you, but. They're much more, bent on executing in the half court and trying to, create shots with movement, with screens and things like that. And obviously, you can just give the ball to LeBron and he can create, most times than not. So it's my best way of explaining it.
Thank you, Steph.